Hello guys. So today I really wanted to talk about being alone when you don't want to be alone, because as someone who actually really enjoys my own company, being alone is something that can feel incredible. You don't have to smile if you don't feel like smiling. There's all of these things. You can just fully just be in your own space, in your own company, exactly as you are. But I think it's a different thing when people like me, someone who really does enjoy being alone, doesn't want to be alone, but circumstances kind of force it upon you. You know what I mean? Like there's no one really around, or yeah. So it's interesting because when I'm in this space of wanting people around but there's not really anyone around, it's odd because it brings out parts of myself that I thought I'd kind of moved past, because I've learnt to be in my own company and really enjoy that the most. When this comes out, this side of me, I really don't enjoy it, obviously, because it comes with the pain of like craving connection and touch and all of these things, and it's not there. But also it brings out the ugly parts of me, the parts of me that are needy and want things and don't want to be alone, and almost desperation comes out, and I hate that feeling. It's like, oh my gosh, I would just love this feeling to stop. And it's an interesting one because when you're in this, I think it can feel like it's all you're going to feel. Like it can make you forget that there's going to be seasons of life where you're also surrounded by people and maybe you don't even have enough time to yourself. But in the moment, when you want something like connection, it can be so difficult to put it into your mind that this is just a period of time and then it will, in the future, potentially the very near future, it will pass. So I'm really trying to focus on when I'm in these periods of isolation that actually feel kind of unwanted and undesirable, looking at how I can reframe that and how I can use that for good and how I can actually seek out connection in different ways. And something that helps me when I don't necessarily want to speak to someone, but I'm craving some sort of just human connection, it's just going for a walk in a place where there are other people. Sometimes that's all I need in order to just flip things around and remind myself that there's a lot of amazing people out there and I'm not always going to be alone for extended periods of time. There's going to be periods of time where there's all craziness going around me, and like I said, then we won't have enough time for ourselves and we will really crave this time. It is hard though, because humans are creatures that need connection and need human contact, and we have evolved this far because we were in groups, and in our brain it just gives us that safety, that security, knowing that there's people there that understand us, and just to the sort of group, have a group of people that are all together is such a reassuring thing. When I was younger, I was constantly around people. Like I was out a lot, I was drinking a lot, I was doing all of those things. And then I went sober about 5 or 6 years ago, 6 years ago now, pretty much. I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit doing everything. And my life just took a whole 180 because I was the only person who did this. So everyone else was continuing their habits, continuing going out, and I'd stopped doing all of those things. So while I would still go out every now and again, the people that I used to do that with no longer had much of an interest in seeing me, because my house used to be where we did those things, and obviously it was no longer that sort of place, and I'm pretty sure we sold the house and stuff around that time. So yeah, it's interesting to see how when you break out of old patterns and habits, that as much as I've gained so much and I wouldn't change anything, like I wouldn't go back and just start drinking or smoking or doing drugs or whatever, as much as like I've gained so much from this, it's funny because it can feel like you've lost some things too. The reality is, when we make beautiful decisions for ourselves, we don't really lose too much. I think loss is something that's very perspective based. Like, the way you look at it is important, because in reality, the people that I no longer see and no longer have contact with fell away because they were no longer aligned. We were no longer aligned. Just as I wasn't for them, they weren't for me. It was an equal thing. And so as much as it can feel like, oh my goodness, like, where's my people? Like, the people that know me, have known me since I was young, where are they? The reason we're not still close is because we no longer see eye to eye on quite a big part of life, and we no longer do the same things for leisure. So it makes sense that we drifted apart, and it makes sense at the time, like, that was really painful for me. But now I understand that it just wouldn't have made sense for our relationships to continue. So yeah, that's interesting. On building new friendships, this is a very interesting one. I do think I have a bit of a hard time with this. Not just being neurodivergent, but yeah, I just have, I don't know, maybe it's like a trust thing. Maybe it's a feeling like I haven't met the people that are supposed to be in my life in a friend way. Like, I've got a few friends, but a lot of them live like far away. So yeah, this alone time, while it can feel very painful at times when you really need someone just there with you, like, even if just not to talk, the amount of growth I've done in this prolonged period of time where I've been mostly alone is actually crazy. I wouldn't have done this sort of growth if I had been constantly with people, because the ugly sides of myself and the painful, dense sides of myself that this has brought up, instead of being able to run from it, I've had to look at it face on, because firstly, I'm sober. Secondly, I've not got the distractions of having a plethora of people around me. And so I've just had to face these things, and I've not been able to run from them. I've tried. Sometimes I face them bravely and I write about them and I really get to why this has happened. I go back to childhood, I go back to everything and really dive in, and I'm like, oh, this is why this hurts me and this scares me so much. And I've taken the time, and it's a difficult thing to do, to really sit with yourself and be like, why does this hurt though? Because it's not just that I don't have, whatever, someone right there. Why is it really hurting? What am I trying to run from? And what am I hoping that connection would really bring me? Can I give any of that to myself now while I'm waiting for these things to align in my life? And the answer is yes, you can give yourself a lot of the things that you hope for from connection with people. But that is not to say that it's not important, because as much as this period of isolation and just being alone has taught me incredible things, and I've had to work through, I've been in the trenches, I've had to work through things for so long. There's also an element of growth that can only happen in connection, I believe, and in relationships and in friendships that you can't tap into on your own. So it goes both ways. And now I'm definitely in the season of life where I'm ready for the sort of healing and learning and education and growth that comes from community and relationships and friendships. Because being someone who, like I said, enjoys my own company, love just pottering around doing all my little things, it can get way too comfortable to just be alone, because everyone in our lives is a mirror of us. If we are aware enough to notice that, everyone really is a mirror. So things that trigger us, things that make us uncomfortable, things that make us angry, things that upset us, things that bring us joy, things that make us full of love, like, all of these things can seem like external forces at play, like, oh, this person annoys me, this person makes me feel so full of love. The reality is, everyone that we're looking at is a mirror of our internal state at that time, and also our level of awareness. Because if you're unaware, you will say, oh, this thing happened and it made me angry. And from one perspective, that's true. Cool, this thing happened, and then anger arose in you, and you feel like that's connected. But the reality of the situation is, we are, even though it can be difficult at the start, and I still massively struggle with this, we are our own universe, like inside of us. So it can seem like someone did something and made you angry, but the reality is, where's that anger really coming from? Because I'm sorry, stubbing your toe, yeah, it hurts, but that anger that comes out where you're swearing and that, I don't believe that's coming from stubbing your toe. Maybe like the knee-jerk reactions to say, fuck, like whatever. But then the anger that continues, I believe that comes from somewhere else. I believe that comes from years of suppressing things that we're actually feeling. How have I got onto stubbing your toes from talking about being alone? I don't know. Oh yeah, everyone's a mirror of us. And everything is a mirror. So the way that we see the world is really a reflection of our inner state. And a big thing that highlighted to me was yesterday. I live in a small town by the sea, and it's a beautiful place. But yesterday it felt like a cage. And that wasn't because it is a cage. That's because my perspective made it so. Because in reality, I live in a beautiful town by the sea. It's calm, it's safe, it's peaceful. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people would dream of it. But to me, yesterday, it felt like I was an animal in a cage and I needed to get out. I literally packed all my stuff. I left. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. I just need to go. I just need to go. I'm going to like move somewhere. I was just going to make a crazy, erratic decision. But it was because my internal state was so chaotic and I was so in my head, so living from the mind, so in my head, so in my head, so in my head, everything, all the negatives. I was focusing on all the negatives. I couldn't see a positive of staying. That's because of my mental space, not because of the reality of the situation. The irony with that is, whatever I believe to be true, in reality is true. So sometimes we forget how powerful we really are. And we forget that the reason that someone upsets us isn't because they have power over us. It's because we're powerful enough to have given them that power. And that's the thing. I was powerful enough to give where I live that power yesterday. It wasn't the reality that where I live has that power over me. I'm so powerful that I gave it that power. And that power was so big that it could ruin my day. And it almost destroyed my whole day. It was a horrible day. But funnily enough, I ended up back here, you know, and I didn't want to be here. But I was so exhausted, and really I didn't want to go somewhere else. I didn't have a place to go. The act of leaving, the act of packing my things and deciding I was going, and then arriving back, it's so funny because it was kind of crazy. It seemed crazy. It was wild. Where's this coming from? Why do I need this all of a sudden? But it brought me back to the conclusion that my inner world really does reflect into the outer, because then all of a sudden I look around my room and I see it from the perspective that is a lot more desirable. I see fairy lights, I feel the warmth, I know I'm safe. I see flowers that I bought myself because I love flowers, in little jars around. I've got plants that are thriving and lush and cleanse the air for me. I've got all my cute teddies. I've got my little mouse Moss, who's just such an angel. Look at her, so cute. I've got all of these things, and more than things, even though I do love things and I love beautiful things and flowers, and there's a feeling here. And that feeling could have been here yesterday. That feeling, that calm, that peace, that safety, that love, that joy, that home feeling was here yesterday. But because I wasn't experiencing it in my inner world, it didn't exist. So I had to run, I had to escape. But then I came back and I realized I was just trying to run from myself. No matter where I ended up, I would still eventually have had to face myself. I would maybe have a different view. And I'm not saying that that couldn't have helped. Sometimes you do need to change your perspective a little bit by really changing your environment. That can help. But the truth of the matter is that's not essential. Maybe if you're in a really toxic situation, it's going to be a lot more difficult to tap into that. And I respect that because I've been there. But for my situation, it was all in here. And as much as it was a horrible, painful, crazy day, and I'm still like tired from it, I needed to go through that to realise that it doesn't matter where I am, really. Because whatever I give power to, whatever I put my attention on, my energy into, is going to be amplified. And I get to choose whether that's the beautiful things or the things that make me feel like I can't do it anymore. That's in my power. Unfortunately, I didn't feel like I could tap into that yesterday. And maybe that's because I needed to go through that to arrive here. I still do think there's places where I could live that would be more suited to me as a person. I'm very creative and I want to be around music and all of these things a lot. But I think, sorry, blender distracting me. I think the reality is we can run, and it's horrible to think, but we can try and run from what we think is bothering us, the external things. We can try and run towards the things that we feel will make us more happy. But I've ran towards things that I thought would be the thing to finish it all, you know, the cherry on top. This is going to be it. I'm going to be so happy when I get this. And then you get it, and that becomes your new normal. And you realise that if in here is in chaos, if in here you feel despair and disappointment and sadness and worry and fear, outside, that's all you're going to see. It doesn't matter how many flowers you put around your room and how many fairy lights you scatter around and how many sweet friends you have messaging you saying that they're here for you. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because as within, so without. That's the simplest way to put it. As within, so without. And I get so caught up in trying to change my external and trying to achieve the things that I want to achieve that will finally make me happy, finally set me free, finally put me where I want to be. But the thing is, you can't have what you don't already have. You can't have what you don't already have. You must be in the state that you want to be in before it manifests into your reality. So if I'm here saying, oh, I'm so alone, I've got no friends, blah, 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 blah. Obviously I have a few friends and they're great. But if I'm giving off that, my reality is going to reflect that, and I will be alone. I won't have people around me. If I'm thinking of a place of like ill health things pop up, you know what I mean? So I learned yesterday that you can try and run, you really can, but I think we will all end up at the same conclusion, that it doesn't matter what we achieve and what we acquire and who we are around, that unless we really work out what it is within us that is keeping us at this low state, we will never really be content and we will never really know peace. And I think that's what this period of isolation has taught me and continues to teach me. That I need to be truly okay with where I'm at, and almost to the point of detachment, of needing anything to change in order to welcome in that change. And it's such a mind fuck, because we want for things, we desire things, and then we have to disconnect from wanting those things and get to the point where we no longer care about having those things, and then all of a sudden those things are there. And that's a weird sort of system, I think. it's a really weird system. By the time you don't want it anymore, it's yours. And I wonder when that sort of treadmill of wanting and disconnecting and then having, when that ends. And I think maybe when our human bodies end. So yeah, just some thoughts that I've been having that I wanted to share. I'm enjoying just talking because sometimes I don't know how I feel or what I need to do until I start talking. I recommend starting doing this, by the way. If you're someone who has a lot of thoughts and you maybe don't have a lot of people to talk to about those thoughts, or people that kind of feel like you understand you, I think it could be a good thing to just record yourself, even if you don't post it. But it could be cool to post it too. I think it's these sorts of videos that I've seen, that I've stumbled across on just small YouTube channels, that have had the most profound impact on me, because it's very raw, isn't it? There's no cuts or minimal cuts, and it's not fancy. It's just someone sitting and talking to you and pouring their heart out, which I always appreciate. So yeah, thank you for being here. I'm gonna post this up now, and I hope you're having a lovely day or night. Bye.